Hopefully you saw this video where I put together a guitar kit, and then after I did that I decided that I would go to guitarfetish.com and order a bunch of parts and try to put them together. And I started out with a factory buyout body that was pre-routed and it kind of looked like a Strat, so I bought a bunch of Strat stuff to put together with it. Turns out it was not a Strat and a bunch of stuff didn't exactly fit, so I had to make some modifications to it. This is the video where I make modifications to it. First of all, the cavity that's routed out is not big enough, so I lay my pickguard on it, mark where it needs to be routed out, and then for the first time in my life, if I'm not mistaken, I use a router. And it turns out pretty good. I don't know why I've waited so long to use one of these, because they are like top notch. I love it. It's my new favorite woodworking tool. Next, even though this was advertised as a unfinished body, it has a finish on it. So I was like, well, I'll just grab some stripper and then put that on there. And so I make some puddles and leave it on there for several minutes and move it around with a putty knife, and nothing happens. I don't know what this is finished with. I assume it's some kind of poly, and it is thick. It will not come off. The only damage that I even do to the finish on this is just with the putty knife. So this got me absolutely nowhere. Plan B is to break out the heat gun and painstakingly just putty knife remove this as the finish kind of melts. And it works well. It's obviously faster than the stripper that wasn't working at all, but it's still like a nightmare. I hated it, but again, it's doable and it does work. I would probably obviously go back and do this route first, knowing what I know now, but just take your time and get the stuff hot and scrape it off and it'll all come off. The new issue that I've found now is the front was polyed over raw wood and the poly bonded to that very well. So I'll show you how I took care of that after I trimmed the pickguard, because if you'll remember, it also didn't fit. There's a little bit that needs to come out around the neck pocket because that didn't fit, and I just do that with a Dremel here. And then I shape it also around the body with a Dremel because that's what I need to do. And I just clean the edges up with some sandpaper as I go. And you'll see now why I didn't take the finish off the front before I started this process, because I thought if I was going to screw anything up, it might as well be the finish that I'm taking off anyway. I make kind of like a spacer to go on my Dremel here with just a little piece of PVC so I can follow this line that I've traced out, and it works pretty well. I probably could have just eyeballed it for the beginning, but it was my safety net, if you will. And then as I get that kind of traced where I need to go, I get a little bit more serious in cutting this, but it's pretty straightforward. Like once you get your groove cut, just go through and remove all the material that's in that until that piece that you no longer want on the pickguard is no longer on the pickguard. I did forget to mention before I started cutting with the Dremel, I had secured this with a couple of screw holes that actually did line up with this pickguard, and now I'm just removing that to continue pulling off everything that I've cut off of it now. And then just like the neck pocket, there's going to be some rough edges here where I've cut this, and I just clean this up with some 220 grit sandpaper, and then I break my Dremel back out with a polishing wheel to clean up the edges as best I can. The polishing wheel, as I'm kind of trying to get that slope, since it's a three layer pick guard, kind of made some marks in it, so I have to polish those out as best I can. I first tried just some 4/0 steel wool, and it wasn't quite enough, obviously, to just knock everything down. So what I wind up doing is grabbing some 600 and some 800 grit sandpaper, and I wet sand this down. It's pretty decent. I then go back over it with a metal polishing compound. I break the steel wool back out, and the end result is basically like a matte finished pickguard instead of just that high gloss that I did have. And I'm pretty okay with it, especially considering this is just a bunch of random parts that are thrown together. It kind of goes with the whole, kind of feel that this guitar is going to have. But at any rate, it was a pain. I wish I wouldn't have put tool marks in this, but at the end of the day, it kind of is what it is. So now to get the finish off the front of the guitar, I break my router back out and I set the bit to basically flush, like cutting almost nothing. And just to make sure that I'm not going to screw anything up, I start where the pickguard is going to cover up. And it's fine. It's going pretty decent, but it's a slow process. Just go slow because that's how you need to do when you don't have a guide or anything and you're just, winging the whole process. But at any rate, I just went all the way around and routed off the entire finish. It's pretty rough, and I wind up having to sand it back down afterwards. But it was so much easier than, the stuff that didn't work to strip it off, and obviously I was causing damage trying to remove it with the heat gun and the putty knife. So this was just my best solution. I'm basically planing the whole front side of the guitar body with a router now and just knocking everything down. So needless to say, super great buy on this, $25. I don't know that you can do that well for a guitar body, but there was a ton of work that had to go into it to get it to this point. Needless to say, I've started building my own guitar bodies now. I'm just kind of in the prototype stage of this and learning some stuff, but so far it's way easier than getting one that needs a lot of work to get it to where you need to put it together. I will do a video of assembling all of this, but I'm also going to do some of this DIY body stuff that I'm doing, and if you want to check that out, make sure that you're subscribed and hit those thumbs up buttons and share this video around to anybody else you know that plays guitar. Thanks for watching and stay tuned.